It was a moment of what should have been joy and turned into panic and just heart-wrenching fear of the worst.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be looking at infamous moments in history when disaster struck at sports events. We'll be exploring incidents that took place during active competition or in the immediate aftermath.
Well, I think the biggest irony is that the sun is shining now and Hillsboro's quiet, and over there to the left, the green Yorkshire hills.
Gansu Ultramarathon Disaster. The annual Gansu Ultramarathon was a competition which held long-distance runners competing through the Yellow River Stone Forest in Gansu, China. In 2021, the competition had 3 events: the 5-kilometer, the half marathon, and the 100-kilometer trail running. During the latter event, disaster struck.
A few hours into the race, some were reported missing after extreme weather hit. One survivor says,
"The wind wrapped around the raindrops, hitting my face like dense bullets."
Runners were hit by a severe cold front that dropped the temperature to below freezing. The wind speed rose rapidly, destroying some of the athletes' space blankets as they took shelter.
Over 1,200 rescuers were dispatched, but a landslide following the severe weather hampered their efforts.
In the end, 21 athletes lost their lives in the tragedy, and 8 were hospitalized.
This incident is a public safety incident caused by sudden changes in weather in a local area. The provincial authorities have established an incident investigation team to further investigate its cause.
In 2023, 7 people involved in organizing the event were sentenced to jail for failing to protect the athletes. The Bradford City Fire. In 1985, which should have been a day of celebrating as Bradford City was crowned the 3rd Division champions, instead ended in horror. Bradford was facing Lincoln City at their home stadium, Valley Parade. With the score 0-0 late in the first half, a fire erupted from the stands. It quickly spread to the wind.
The crowd didn't move at all. They remained seated, engrossed in the football match, almost oblivious of what was happening.
Fans tried their best to escape by going onto the pitch and leaving through the turnstile gates. However, since the gates were locked after kickoff, many people couldn't leave. Sadly, 56 people lost their lives and approximately 265 were injured. This tragic incident led to a nationwide modernization of football grounds and the removal of wooden stands. The Ibrox Disaster. Ibrox Stadium, home to the Rangers FC, is one of the most iconic sports grounds in the UK. Yet in 1902, the Glasgow, Scotland-based arena was a place of tragedy. At the time, the Scottish national team took on England in the British Home Championship. Around halfway through the first half, the over-encumbered West Tribune stand collapsed, sending hundreds of fans falling 40 feet to the ground amongst debris.
The back of the newly built West Tribune stand collapsed due to heavy rainfall the previous night, causing hundreds of supporters to fall to the ground below.
Altogether, 25 people lost their lives and over 500 were injured. Even though Ibrox was redesigned in the aftermath, disaster struck again in 1971. After watching their side face rivals Celtic FC, a massive crush happened at a stairway as supporters left, resulting in 66 deaths and over 200 injuries.
It's an accident to happen. That was something that perhaps was just about to come. One of these days, there was going to be a crush. People were going to get killed.
The Happy Valley Racecourse Fire. While under British occupation, the Happy Valley Racecourse was built in Hong Kong in 1845 to showcase horse racing. Every February, a Derby Day event was held, yet 1918 would turn this tradition into a horrifying piece of history. During the event, one of the temporary grandstands collapsed. The debris knocked over food stalls and set the bamboo matting on fire, which rapidly grew. 614 people are said to have lost their lives that day, with an untold number injured. In 1922, the Racecourse Fire Memorial was created in Socon Po to honor the lives lost during the tragedy. The Portside Stadium Riot. In 2012, tensions were high as football clubs Al Masry and Al Ahly faced each other in the Egyptian Premier League. After all, some Al Masry fans released a song threatening the lives of Al Ahly supporters who turned up at the Portside Stadium.
One player described the situation as a war.
After Al Masry won 3-1, thousands of the fans descended onto rival supporters with weapons, sparking a massive riot. Fleeing fans were unable to leave as police reportedly refused to open the gates, leading to further disaster.
This resulted actually in the bad injuries of hundreds of people.
Altogether, 74 people lost their lives and over 500 were injured. At least 47 people were arrested for their role in the disaster, including club officials and police officers, 11 of whom were handed death sentences.
People in the city rioted, attacked the police, and tried to storm the prison.
The Hillsboro Disaster. Instead of watching a match between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest in the semi-final of the FA Cup at Sheffield Wednesday's Hillboro Stadium, England experienced its worst stadium disaster.
An ambulance has just come into the stadium and it's making its way through a vast crowd of people away to the left.
Shortly into the game, fans began falling from the stands and onto the pitch to escape catastrophe.
Thousands are now packed into the Leppings Lane bottleneck.
The pens and stands had been vastly overfilled with supporters by the police, leading to crushes as panic set in.
Over the course of 5 minutes, 2,000 fans streamed through, with most of them heading straight to the centre pens.
Including those that perished years later from life-changing injuries. 97 people lost their lives and hundreds were injured. Years of inquiries eventually concluded that the police and match officials were being grossly negligent. The Kanjuruhan Stadium horror.
The league is suspended, the investigation's underway. The hurt, overwhelming.
After their side lost 3-2 at home to rivals Persebaya Surabaya in 2022, thousands of Arema fans in Indonesia invaded the pitch, causing players to seek safety. In an attempt to gain control of the riot, the police fired tear gas at the crowd. Yet this only escalated things.
It was the feeling of disappointment that prompted the supporters to go down to the field to ask the players why they lost the game. That's when the security team moved in for prevention efforts.
Thousands of people ran to the exits in fear. Sadly, at one particular exit, this caused a mass crush that resulted in 135 fatalities and 583 injuries. Several individuals held responsible for inciting the incident were put on trial for their negligence and found guilty.
I regret this tragedy, and I hope this is the last football tragedy in this country. A tragedy like this must not happen anymore in the future.
The Thanksgiving Day disaster. Since 1892, the University of California, Berkeley's Golden Bears, and Stanford University's Cardinals have faced off annually in American football. Yet in 1900, the big game was mired in tragedy. A group of spectators wanted to save on paying the admission fee and watch the game on the roof of a glass factory. 20 minutes after kickoff, the roof collapsed. Up to 100 people fell to the factory floor, some hitting the burning furnace, which had a surface temperature of 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Fuel pipes were also cut, spraying the searing contents and sparking a fire. 23 people perished from the disaster, and over 100 were injured. The Estadio Nacional disaster. In 1964, Peru hosted Argentina at the Estadio Nacional in Lima. Late in the game, Peru equalized to make it 1-1. However, the referee disallowed their goal. Outraged Peru fans invaded the pitch, causing the police to try and contain them by using tear gas, even firing it into the stands to deter others. It caused a mass panic as people rushed to the exits. However, large shutters stopped them from escaping and caused a mass crush. This resulted in the worst sports stadium disaster in history, with at least 328 people losing their lives and around 500 injuries.
More or less, everybody who was detained was the victim of some sort of violence, some more than others.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. The Boston Marathon attack. The Boston Marathon is one of the most iconic long-distance running events in the world.
More than 23,000 started the race, 500,000 spectators along the 26.2-mile course.
Yet in 2013, instead of being celebrated for the athletic display, the focal point of the coverage on the American competition was catastrophe. 2 explosions went off near the finish line amongst the spectators. 3 people lost their lives and hundreds were injured.
Make no mistake, we will get to the bottom of this.
The homemade devices were placed by extremist brothers Johar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev. A massive manhunt took place to locate them. Eventually they were discovered. While Johar was arrested and later sentenced to death, Tamerlan was killed during the shootout with the police. What other sports tragedy did we miss in the video? Let us know below.
This is terrible. I mean, this is terrible. I'm upset.